back. I glued the original binding back on. I had to reroute the channel with a router. I didn't get that on camera. Get the tape off, and we're going to get it all smoothed out and sanded down. If you're new to the channel, there are two previous videos of this particular Gibson J45 restoration. It was built in 1945, or close to then. It lived its life in Canada, probably in a caboose. It lived on the Trans-Canadian Railway, probably in the caboose. As you'll see in the previous videos, it was really messed up. So you might want to go back and find these videos on my channel. Love that sound. Here's the old school board chalkboard chalk trick. I don't know. I don't know, Yogi. Where'd my chalk go? Oh, boy. Okay, this fingerboard needs a good leveling, and these frets have seen better days, so we're going to refret it. I'm going to level the fingerboard. I'm not going to try to get all the pits out. It's pointless. If you take too much off of a fingerboard, it can affect the effectiveness of the truss rod. During the manufacturing process of the fret wire, there's a residue of oil left on them. I suppose maybe they keep it on there to keep them from tarnishing, but you don't want that on your fret in the slot, especially if you're gonna. I like to use a little fish glue, and yeah, I always clean them up. You can use a little naphtha or alcohol. clean out the fret slots, I use my Dremel using a Stumac number 1180 tapered bit that fits into a Dremel. The cutter will follow the path of least resistance as long as you keep a steady pressure, and you want to be careful not to force it too much. There's often glue already in the slot. It can build up on the bit, and the bit can snap. So sometimes if the glue or the slot is too tight, or there's too much glue, or too shallow, you might want to take a few passes instead of doing it all in one cut. You can see here I'm just using a steady, even pressure, always pulling towards myself, being careful not to drift away and cut into the rest of the fingerboard. It usually behaves pretty well as long as you don't force it too hard. When I cut my frets, I want to make sure that there's a little bit of an overhang there. I brush on a little bit of wood glue. In this case it's fish glue. Just a little bit. Don't need a lot. I like to place a bag of lead shot underneath the neck. When I go to hammer in the frets, it absorbs a lot of the vibration and it just makes it more smooth. So a bag of sand would work very well. In cutting the ends with my cutters, I place a little pressure with my thumb on the cutter as not to lift the fret up and out of the slot. Although I did glue them, so they should be secure by now. A file block is used. The file is mounted into the block at about 30-degree angle. It makes things a lot easier when dressing the ends of the frets. The fingerboard radius block is used to level the tops of the frets. Later I'll put a new bead on the crown of the fret and give them a nice polish. Next, the ends of the frets are filed smooth with a special file. I try to use the same amount of pressure, the same amount of strokes, and the same angle for each fret, treating them all the same. Now we're going to take a little walk to the machine room where we keep the buffing machine. Sanding, 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 sanding some more, sanding. And we're going to scrape away this old finish from the binding. I use a little block of wood and a single edge razor super glued into a slot to hold it in a very specific depth.
It's a nice color.
I'm just wiping a little naphtha on
Nice.
it to see what we got for color.
And cool. There were some big dents in here. I filled them with marine epoxy and sanded them out. We'll just leave them like they are. I've been building up this shellac. I'm using it as a sanding sealer for the neck, and I didn't use any pore filler on it. I'm just gonna build up the shellac on there, going old school.
Just sent him a message saying, hey, the strings sound really stupid because
I sprayed the front of the headstock black, and I'm going to put the water slide on. You don't want to let it soak too long. It dissolves the glue too much. Just enough so you can move it. Well, I'm going to take a little break from sanding and finishing and whatnot and clean up these tuners the best I can. They're nice and beat up and funky looking, but we're going to get a lot of that tarnish out of there and give them a little 3-in-1 oil and give the tuning shafts a little polish. A little before and after. I sealed the entire guitar with shellac, and I didn't want to get any shellac on the binding because it was a little too streaky. But we'll give that a nice sanding, and next we're going to go to the spray booth and start spraying some burst on this to hide those staple holes all around the edge there. And yeah, get a nice burst, and I'm going to go with a semi-gloss matte finish instead of trying to make it look brand new. I think that would be more appropriate for the instrument since it has a few lumps and bumps that couldn't be sanded out. So it'll be more in keeping with the instrument's age, I think. So I have an idea to help make spraying in my brand new spray booth a little easier. I've made a fake dovetail blank here, just a scrap piece of wood. You put a dowel in here like that, So I came up with a way to suspend this J45 from the ceiling. A couple of dowels, straps, utility hooks, and just there you go. I can spin it around and get around all the sides, and I made a dovetail and put the dowel in there and glued it in. Yeah, and wedges in nice and tight. I just tap it in and it's nice and firm, and that does a great job. So I think that'll work, at least temporarily, until I get more gizmos. It'd be nice to spin it around to 4 axes, but I can work with that. I'm going to use primarily to build up the finish just a regular clear nitro, and the last few coats I will use a special compound from Mohawk, which will convert your gloss lacquer into a matte lacquer. And yeah, it'll work very nicely. And I am loving this new spray booth that I made from a grow tent. There's an episode I recently put up that you can check out, all about the spray booth. I'm spraying a little amber on the binding to tone it down a bit, and as you see in the previous clips, the binding is quite yellow, so I'm going to go with the same. I'm going to add a little more amber to the top as well. I'm going to be doing a tobacco burst. I'm gonna seal in that water slide with a little lacquer to glue it down and protect it, because I'm going to be using a Dremel router bit to install a fleur de lis. Time for the sunburst. I'm using a tobacco brown, Jacobian brown. It comes under a couple other different names. I'm using a much smaller gun from Harbor Freight. It actually does a pretty good job, considering what I paid for it, like 20 bucks. I'm going to cover up all those staple holes. I'm guessing someone tried to do a Buddy Holly and cover the thing with leather or something. I'm going to have to learn some Buddy Holly songs to test this out at the end. also going to spray a little orange around that sunburst. I think it'll just warm it up a little bit. And when I look at photographs, I detect a little bit of orange. So we're going to add that next. Just a little bit.
Voila! Okay, so I sprayed the burst on this last night, and the colors here are straight up Stumac or Trans Tint Vintage Amber. And of course the tobacco, tobacco brown, which is a black brown, typical of Gibson's. And I also sprayed a little bit of orange around the in the outer edge of the burst. I noticed a lot of pictures. There was a little bit of hint of an orange transition area there. Now, in my exuberance, I forgot to tape off my rosette here. So that's going to cost me a little bit in scraping time. I'll just take a razor and scrape it off. I'm going to retape it again because I want to go just a little bit darker up here. So I'm going to spray it again, just the tobacco brown up on the shoulders, which is typical of most Gibsons that you see.
And I'm also going to add a little shading to the heel of the neck into the headstock in various places. And I'm just going to tape off those side dots so they don't get lost in the translation. There's also that ugly dark spot at the top of the heel where the screw eye was brutally installed on this as a strap uh, button solution at one point. Very punk. Okay, so I did some subtle shading. There's that big hole from that screw-in loop. It shows up on camera, but it just takes the curse off of it a little bit. You can still see it. But just some subtle shading on the headstock and on the heel. I haven't decided if I wanted to do some color on the body. I'd have to tape off the binding. I also sprayed a little amber on that water slide, and I also sprayed a little of that tobacco brown, very subtle, just to add some dirt to it and cut down the brightness of that logo. There's a little glaring, you know. So what we're going to do next is put the fleur de lis here. He decided he didn't care about the only a Gibson's good enough banner. He wants to put a fleur de lis because his family's from Canada, and it's French. So I'm trying to think of a way that I can, it's such detail there. This is sort of like a different version of a couple of ideas. Now when I look at it, I need to center this a little better. But I need to trace the outline, and I'm going to do it with water-based model glue here. I just need a dusting. Use my little airbrush here, my cheapo little Badger airbrush, and I will basically just spray a mist there, and it'll leave a shadow. And I'll pop that off, and I'll be able to see what I'm doing. Afterwards, I have enough lacquer on here. I can just sand it off and continue on with the finishing process after I have the inlay put in. I'm using a little black marine epoxy. It's just a marine epoxy with some trans tint added to it. They work well together. gonna spray a little more amber on that and a little bit of dirt. Now we're going to seal in all that shading and sunburst and whatnot. Still have to clean the front of the binding off a little bit with a wood block and razor blade trick. I just want to get it sealed in and protected and start building up the lacquer. The last few coats will be a matte lacquer.
James Bond theme or Rumble by Ray Gray. It makes you want yeah, pipeline. That my car teacher taught me. I know. I told me some cool stories of like when I was in wanted to do that. Although I always thought something on Monday was that,
Hey folks, how you doing? Here we are in the brand new Grow Tent spray booth. Here, 360-degree. But we changed the, there you go. Put the fisheye lens on, you know. Yeah. We got filters on all the holes and everything. I got a 1500 CFM fan churning away in the background there. And we're ready to spray this 1945 Gibson Canadian Railway J45. So we're come a long way on this thing. A lot of stuff we had to do. We had to take the back off. We had to, put the binding on. And I'm looking at it now. I did some sanding. It looks like, I tinted the binding a little bit. But I think I'm going to, before I spray clear, I'm going to spray a little more amber on those spots so they don't stick out so much. All right, so here you go.
Okay, so I've sprayed about 5 coats of nitrocellulose lacquer on this. Of course, we started with a primer coat of hand brushing on some shellac. Went old school this time. So I sprayed about 5 coats of nitro, and I'm just going to give it an initial sanding. My plan is to do this in a matte finish. Um, there's a few, they're not major, but this thing has been so roughly sanded before. It doesn't look bad. It looks pretty good, pretty shiny. But we're gonna sand it down and see where we're at. I'm just gonna do some initial sanding. I'm not gonna do a final sanding. I'm gonna start with 1000 grit and see how we're doing and see if we're ready for a coat of matte nitro on top of that. Give it a little wipe down. Since it's there's a lot of mojo going on there from former just all the stuff it's been through back in that caboose there in the Canadian Railway. I'm not expecting it to look like a brand new guitar. I think that would be silly. But we just sand it so all the shiny spots are gone. There's a few bumps here from, pretty little pick wear thing, but there's going to be a pick guard here, so that's probably going to cover that up. Some little low spot here. All right, and we're going to keep going. I'm using a sprayer to apply water because we're wet sanding, of course. Okay, So I just did a once over with the 1000 here. I didn't want to get too aggressive there, but it'll give me a way to read the top in the reflection of the light. And I can see like little tiny little craters and you know, low areas there. Now that I know where they are, I'm going to go in with a slightly more aggressive 800 grit, wet or dry, and go over those and try to knock down some of these pits and high spots here. You'll notice I'm going in a circular fashion. Of course, you wouldn't want to do that on bare wood, but now that there's a finish on the wood, you don't, that's sort of a moot point. You're not worried about putting scratches in the wood that'll show up when you put a stain on it or any other finish on it, which will amplify those sanding marks. Okay, got a little tiny spot there. So touch that up a little. We'll clean it up with a razor. Okay, we're going to mix up some matte lacquer. Today we're using Mohawk Classic Instrument Lacquer. It's a clear gloss, so we need to dull it up a little bit using the flattening paste. So we're going to mix up a batch here. It's good to be able to custom make your own matte lacquer. You can control the amount of matte or eggshell or semi-gloss. So it's important to note when you mix this, we want to be careful to keep the rim as clean as we possibly can. And that's could be a very difficult thing, but we have to be careful because this stuff will dry and create flakes, and you don't want those flakes to get into your lacquer. Bowl jar. I'm just going to count these in case we need to recreate this recipe. 1, 2, 3. All right. Down. I'm going to put the lid back on carefully to avoid contaminating the rim. And we're going to put a cover shake idea to strain it. Yeah, see, I see a little speck of something in there. It was probably already in there. In the strainer. Thingy there. Alright, we'll see you in the booth in a few minutes. Okay, so since I scraped away this binding a little bit more around the edge, it is no longer vintage yellow, so we're going to go over that so it matches the rest of the binding, so it's not bright white like that. Now, in our last spray session, it went pretty well with the sides and back, but on the top, I'm having a little bit of an issue. You see, it's sort of hazy here, and it's like a little crinkle. Looks okay from above, so they don't affect the color coat. That area there, up until about here, crinkled up. Maybe it's because I used, for a sealer, a sanding sealer, I used shellac. And shellac is fine with nitro, usually. But if you apply it too heavily, you might run into issues like this. This the only reason I can think of why just this particular area here. I probably was a little too exuberant with the thickness of it. What I'm going to try before I spray my last coat, the rest of the guitar looks great. I have the pre-catalyzed sanding sealer, which I intend to use as a buffer coat. It's a bit of a risk. Did a little research, and this will hopefully create a buffer coat. It's a sanding sealer. It's not a finish per se. So I will spray this, create a barrier between this area here. So it'll, I tried spraying it again, and it still, came out with this crinkly, dull area. So we'll spray the pre-catalyzed sanding sealer. I'll let that dry up, sand it, and then spray, hopefully, the final coat of matte nitrocellulose. And before I do that, I'm going to prep the surface with naphtha. Make sure there's no oils or contaminants on the surface before I spray the sealer. Okay, so I sprayed the catalyzed sanding sealer on there. It seems it's not reacting, and that's good. I am going to give this a little wet sand and before I put the final coat of matte nitrocellulose lacquer on top of it. I'm going to let this dry good and thoroughly over the weekend. I don't see any reaction there like it did when I sprayed it with nitro. So I think we'll be good. We'll just let it cure out nice first. I can definitely live with that. That doesn't look bad at all, considering what this poor thing has been through. Oh yeah, that little crinkling is gone. So our pre-catalyzed barrier coat was a good move. Okay, I think we can move on to the next major phase, which is putting it all back together.
Well, I was hoping to get this whole project done within 3 episodes, but it looks like we're going to have a fourth episode. I don't want these videos to be too long. Please like, subscribe, share it on Facebook, let your friends know. You'll be helping me out a great deal. Thank you. And we'll see you again on episode 4. Paka.